Dear viewer, I'm writing this letter in the hopes that you will enlighten me, for I am a simple man. But sometimes I am a curious man, so here goes nothing. As men, war is something embedded in our very nature. It's deeply rooted in our genes. It boils inside our blood. And I think it's because of that men will always be fascinated with the world wars. There's something mesmerizing, enrapturing about these wars that trigger this innate respect some men will always carry for those who went to war, especially for those who never came back home to their mamas. This respect I'm talking about is not because we give a crap about serving our country or that the soldiers did, poor souls, but I think it's because we see the world wars as something mythological, ripped from the safe reality shielding us today, where a civilized society prevails above all. Well, prevails in theory at least. That's why war-themed movies are so popular. They move us. They enrapture us with tales of bravery, of suffering, of unyielding courage in the face of death itself, with warriors paying the ultimate price so that the rest of us might live and have the freedoms we have today. Now, that being said, all I'm wondering is if they knew back then they were fighting and dying so that TikTok could exist. My question for you fine folk is, would they still die for every thought's right to shake her ass and titties, bringing shame to their mamas and pappies? Would you die today so that future generations could do all sorts of stupid shit like that and post it on the internet? Would ya? Tick-tock. Makes me sick. The first time we're introduced to the campaign of Battlefield 1, we're face to face with an unapologetically brutal, bloody, kill by any means necessary, and I do mean by any means necessary, fight for survival. And it's an amazing historical depiction, because back in 1914 to 1918, guns weren't all that reliable or easy to use. It was a war fought with bayonets when you ran out of bullets and didn't have time to reload. We can't even begin to imagine the terrors of fighting in such conditions. Stabbing another person with a knife multiple times just because you met on opposite sides of the field. You're both doing what you think is right or righteous, but if one of you hesitates, he dies. And Battlefield's first chapter does a superb job of portraying just that. It pulls no punches, it shocks from the very first second, because that's what war is all about when it comes down to it. Straight up savagery. After that entire ordeal, you get this message. First time I saw it, I was like, damn, this is some heavy stuff, not expected to survive. Can you even imagine the inner workings of the deep meaning behind that sentence? I knew shit was about to get real in that very second. So during my first playthrough, after I was in awe with the graphics from 2016 that still hold up great in 2021 by the way, I began shooting left and right, saying to myself that this is an amazing experience. The odds being against me on the battlefield, I died, and frowning, I thought to myself that that's not right, how the hell am I supposed to… Oh, so I'm dying and playing with a lot of other characters as well? This is pure narrative genius. But more than that, the impact really hit me when the title said the soldier's name and, more importantly, his age. I was like, Jesus Christ, they really know how to get under your skin. The shock was huge to me because I realized that among all those horrors, there were just kids behind it all. No square-jawed, pec-filled, bicep-pumping, cape-wearing hero, just young boys, some guns, a couple of bullets, and a knife at the end of the barrel.
Instead of adventure, we found fear. And in war, the only true equalizer is death.
Rarely have I experienced such an impact when it came to World War games. I mean, they were cool before Battlefield 1, but this one had something more to offer. It had heart, passion put into it, more than in any such game that came before it. That was my experience with just the first 15 minutes of Battlefield 1. Even though Chapter 2 did have its moments, it wasn't all that emotional for me, so I'll just skip right through it and get to the third chapter. This time around, the story isn't as bleak. We have this Maverick-type character that's slick and likable.
My name's Clyde Blackburn. I'm a pilot and a gambler.
Like Indiana Jones, Nathan Drake, or Mel Gibson in Maverick.
Sorry. Give me that!
Blackburn is not a bad character or an anti-hero, but he's not quite the hero either, at least not in the beginning, cause he only cares about himself and doesn't stick his neck out for anyone. What I love most about this story is that it has this entire character arc where the protagonist goes through a personal evolution by the end, which just goes to show that you don't need a 20-hour game to tell a great story surrounding a character. The guys and gals at DICE really made a compelling, heartfelt story with Blackburn, and I hope they're going to repeat it in future iterations of Battlefield as well. Even though, in this one, at the end, they kinda explained it for 2-year-olds.
And that's my story. A selfish man who risked his own life to save another, and in doing so, found he was saved himself.
But at the same time, they redeemed themselves through his last 2 spoken lines.
What you heard from me is the truth. I wouldn't tell you if it wasn't. Would I?
The 4th chapter didn't really pinch my sensitive nerve, but I did respect the way the story was told. Instead of just repeating the pattern that came before it, the writers turned this campaign sequence into a flashback.
It's time I told you what happened to him. It was during our last battle together, just a few days after our 21st birthday.
The story is not one close to home for me, for I am an only child, but being in the shoes of the protagonist in search for his long-lost brother, doing everything in his power to find him and bring him home, made me get completely on board with the premise. And me being a cynic, the ending was right up my alley.
I'd almost stopped looking. Started giving in to the hope that Matteo had escaped. And then...
No! No!
Because after he finds his brother, after the hell the main character went through to find him, it turns out only suffering was waiting for him in the end. The reason I liked this part was because life rarely turns out how you picture it. You can do everything in your power, conquer every mountain, slay every demon, but sometimes it's all for nothing.
He never got older.
That's exactly why the story of the two brothers from Battlefield 1 moved me. The writers could have gone with a happy ending, but that would have meant betraying the entire narrative concept they started out with. Bishop the Australian. Rarely have I met a character that I liked so much after hearing just a few lines of dialogue. This seasoned soldier is so well designed from a narrative and a visual point of view that I couldn't help but feel like I was beside him all along. He is a kind-hearted figure that always puts himself in harm's way to protect others. Something we see during the very first minute of his campaign.
You have to take this kid off me.
Of course not. He came all this way just to see you. Frederick Bishop, the pride of Australia. Been lied about his age to get past conscription.
He objects to taking this young boy under his wing because he doesn't want to see another soul perish like he probably saw so many times before. It's in the way he talks, how he moves, his facial expressions that tell you everything you need to know about him from the start. This story is so self-contained and so well written that you cannot deny the emotional impact his death has on you the first time you go through it. It shook me up a bit even this second time, and I knew it was going to happen. The perfect combination between the sorrowful song along with his last words make for a perfect narrative storm in my opinion. Now, the last chapter of the campaign wasn't that impressive for me to write about more than this sentence saying that the last chapter of the campaign wasn't that impressive, but that's not the point. The point is, however, that overall, the story of Battlefield 1 is superb. You might not agree with me 100%, but you can't deny the narrative beauty that is the story of this game. It carried me along this amazing ride that games rarely do, let alone shooters. I only hope that the next Battlefield will be as emotional as this one. Because after 5 years since it was initially released, Battlefield 1, for me, has the very best shooter campaign I have ever played. But how about you? Which shooter campaign do you regard above all others? And until next time, we appreciate it if you liked this video, if you enjoyed it of course, because it would help us out with the algorithms and so on. And if you truly like what we do, you can support us on Patreon. Hope you're all well and see you in the next one.